So it looks like Xbox might actually be getting an advantage in terms of what the hardware can do versus the PS5. And I want to talk about it. But before we get on to the video, definitely hit that like button if you guys enjoyed the video. You can always subscribe to the channel for weekly content. And don't forget to go over there on Twitter and follow me at Lord Addict ILP. Without any further ado, let's talk about this. What's going on, you guys? Gaming Addict here, coming at you for another video. Today we're going to be talking about a feature that I personally feel like Xbox has over the PlayStation to a huge dramatic way. What am I talking about? I'm talking about the backwards compatibility boost feature. The question you guys should have to me is, Addict, what is the boost feature for the Xbox Series S and X? That's a great question, you guys. I will explain this to the best of my ability. Now, remember back in the Xbox One and the PS4 days that there were certain games that ran at 30 frames that you were hoping that maybe the PlayStation 4 Pro would update and make it to where the game ran at 60 frames. There's a lot of games that did not run 60 frames on the PlayStation 4 Pro, but there was a lot that they did. But at the end of the day, a lot of people expected that, maybe it's hardware limitations, and when we get the PS5, they will start updating those past games to run 60 frames on the current new hardware. Now, did PlayStation completely drop the ball in this area? No. There was a lot of, especially first-party studio games such as God of War, Ghost of Tsushima that got that extremely significant upgrade where you can play these games at 60 frames if you choose to. There were some of these updates that you could play at 60 frames on the PS4 Pro, but you did have to take a hit in the resolution. But it looks like they brought those same versions to the PS5 and they made sure that it ran native at a certain degree that you want with the 60 frames update. But that's just first party. Clearly there was some that did it because of working behind the scenes with these third-party developers, but for the most part, let's be completely honest, I've not seen the same aggression from Sony that I have seen with Microsoft really trying to make these older games run as best as possibly can. I know some of you don't really appreciate when an older game is updated to run as best as it possibly can on that platform, but to me, there is a huge reason why Sony should be really justifying and going at these older games and trying to make sure they run natively on their platform at the best possible way they can. Keep in mind, this is the beginning of the generation. This isn't 2 to 3 years into the future. We're not halfway through the generation. This is the beginning of the generation. And we got to be honest in that terms as well. There is a huge amount of people that are currently still playing games on the PS5 and the Xbox Series S and X of last generation. Plus, I would assume that the majority of games that we're getting right now, they're just up-res versions of the PS4 and Xbox One counterpart. But at the end of the day, yes, people are going to be looking forward to newer games. So it doesn't really necessarily matter as much if you do have a lot of older games run at the highest fidelity. But to me, it's like I said, these people are still playing these older games. There's a lot of newer gamers just coming into the scene that even hasn't played these games. So the fact that you can just go on your Xbox right now and play the Dragon Age Inquisitions and play the Dishonored franchise at the best versions they possibly can means a lot to me. Here recently, Microsoft actually boosted the frame rates of a lot of different games. Let's go over this list and see if any of them are important enough to really validate that time and effort Microsoft took into making sure those games ran the best they possibly can. So the first thing we're going to talk about is Alien Isolation. It runs 60 frames on the Series X and the Series S. That's an amazing feat with that game. A lot of people like that game. Do I think this is one of those games that people would go back and play? Maybe just to try it out, but I don't think it's one of those games that people would go back to play the entire game. Now, Anthem. Clearly, on the Series X, it's 60 frames, and on the Series S, it looks like it's still what it was, which I believe was 30 frames. Now, let's go into a little bit on Assassin's Creed. Everyone knows that they changed up the format when it comes to playing the Assassin's Creed games. They're no longer how they used to be when Assassin's Creed 3, Assassin's Creed Rogue, the Ezio Collection, and Unity came out. They're completely different games than they are now. Now, here's my question to you guys. Let's say people only played Origins. They only played Valhalla and Odyssey. If they want to go back and try these older Assassin's Creeds, Microsoft has given them the ability to go do that. Now, here's the Battlefield games. They're all the way up to 120 frames. Battlefield 1, Battlefield 4, Battlefield Hardline, and Battlefield 5. Multiplayer games are extremely fickle when it comes to if the community is going to latch on to them or not. So it's really good that with Battlefield 6 definitely coming out this year, if you didn't necessarily like Battlefield 5, you can go play Battlefield 1. You can go play Battlefield 4. I don't think too many people are going to play Hardline, but they all run at 120 frames. And if you have a display that supports that, you have a huge advantage going into these games, and you can play them at a very good performance rate. And you cannot tell me in any realm that having a game running good and performing extremely well is bad for anyone. It's good for everyone. Now, Dead Island, the Definitive Edition, and Dead Island Riptide. Clearly, as we know, Dead Island 2 is in development hell. We have no clue what's going on with this game. We don't even really know if the game's coming out. But let's say Dying Light 2, that's coming out. You know, Dead Island 2, if it does come out, what is a good game you can go back and you can play these games? You can play them at 60 frames, you can play them at a very good performance, and you can see what these older games was before you go to their sequels. I mentioned Dying Light earlier. If you notice, Dying Light is at the bottom of the list. So when Dying Light 2 comes out, or they really start hardcore promoting it and they give a good release date, you can go right now on the Xbox One X and you can play this game at 60 frames to really get that hype going into Dying Light 2. And it's like I said, that is a very, very good selling point to people that love the Dying Light franchise. Regardless how you felt about Dishonored, Dishonored's on here, the Definitive Edition, and Dishonored: The Death of the Outsider. It is looking like it's going to be 60 frames on the S and the X. So that's a very good thing. Let's say they make a Dishonored 3 going into the future. It's an awesome ability that you can go and play the prequels of this, and you don't have to play it at that whack 30 frames. I know at one point in time, everyone watching this video considered going back to an older game when the sequel was coming out, and you went back and you played that, and guess what? The performance was horrible, so you probably turned that off, went to YouTube and looked at those cutscenes, so you know exactly what's going on in the single player of that sequel. Let's talk about Fallout 4 and Fallout 76. Clearly, Fallout 76 probably was one of the worst bugged games that come out in a long time, and it's on this list. You can play Fallout 76 at 60 frames on the Series S and on the Series X. Same thing with Fallout. Sooner or later, we're going to get another Fallout, and it's good that you can play pretty much all of their Fallout games at a very good performance. And when the new Fallout comes out, you're ready, you know what's going on. For the most part, Fallouts don't really have a continuous story like that, but these are timeless games. Skyrim, Fallout, these type of games is something that you always want to update because the fan base is so ravaged and they want to play these games. Now, I'm not going to go into all of the games that's on here. There was games like Wasteland 3, the Watch Dogs series, the Titanfall series, which is an amazing series, and they even put the Evil Within 2. Keep in mind, this is not the first time that Xbox has come out and formally upgraded a lot of these games. They've done it a couple times, but this is one of the biggest lists that they've done. I know there's a lot of you that only prefer to play new games, and that's okay. I know there's a lot of you that prefer to play old games, and that's okay. And I know there's a lot of you that want to play both of them, and guess what? That's okay. But we gotta stop putting ourselves in this isolated echo chamber where we assume people only want to play new games, and we assume people only want to play old games. Because guess what? There's a lot of gamers out there that want to take their stuff and play it as the best they possibly can in the next generation of consoles. And you know what? I know a lot of you are not going to like this next statement that comes out of my mouth, but in my opinion, Sony didn't care about that. They didn't care about their consumers when it came to stuff like that. They want to forcibly push you on these new consoles and play all these new games on these new consoles, and they're not really trying to put a whole lot of effort behind their backwards compatibility features. Now, I'm not dumb. I know Sony is updating those features, but I feel like they're not doing it as well as Microsoft. And I don't know about you guys, I have a PlayStation 5. I want my PlayStation 5 games to run just as good as they do on my Xbox Series X. That's the reason I play a lot of these older games on my Xbox. And when I say older games, I'm not even talking about like the beginning of last generation. I'm talking about games that just came out at the end of the generation. And I feel like us as consumers, gamers, PlayStation gamers especially, we need to be on Sony and we need to show them one thing. We want better features. You can't even gift on the PlayStation 5, and that's a completely different video. But anyway, that's my video for you guys. I just want PlayStation to improve in terms of backwards compatibility. I know that they're doing decent with it, but I feel like they need to compete more on Microsoft as a whole. And that's just me. I've always wanted both consoles to do better. I want the Switch to do better in online features. I want Xbox to do better in games. And I want PlayStation to do better when it comes to backwards compatibility and features in general with the PlayStation 5. But anyway, tell me what you guys think in the comment section below. Is backwards compatibility something that you guys really value, or is it something you guys can throw away? I know there's a lot of split going on when it comes to this. I know a lot of people don't care, a lot of people do care, and I'm curious to hear your guys' opinion in the comment section below. This is Gaming Addict. Until the next time, I'm out of here. Peace.